Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael St. John, and I'm here to bring you our September 3rd Thursday. I just would like to thank some special folks. Joelle, who's with the MRA L&D committee, who's going to say a few words tonight. Kate Larson, who does our marketing. Gary Ferris, our MRA webmaster. We're also going to hear a few words from Allison Sheets, our MRA president, and again, to Ava, who does an outstanding job of facilitating our Zoom session tonight. I'm going to first start off with Allison Sheets to say a few words to the Mountain Rescue Association. Allison.
All right, thanks, Michael. Welcome everybody to September's third Thursday, which is going to be, the topic is leadership in search and rescue. And if, for those of you who weren't at our spring conference up in Estes Park last summer, leadership development and professionalism was a big part of that whole conference, and there were some really excellent presentations given, and this topic is really taken off with the MRA. And in fact, it's one of our sort of 5 pillars for strategic planning is leadership and professionalism. And with that, I just wanted to point out a few things that I think we should all be thinking about as we watch this program from Art Fortini. My team is celebrating 75 years this year, and I think about how leadership development and sort of the process to get people up into leadership positions has developed in our team over 7 decades. And, you know, as is the case with many of our, especially our older teams, it was always kind of a, tap on the shoulder sort of thing. And, one day you find yourself in leadership, but there wasn't much of a process. And I think as we get to be sort of more professional teams, we really need to think about our process. And that starts with recruiting people, with the idea of recruiting people that would be good in leadership, looking for those traits in folks from the very start. Maintaining a training program for leadership. We spend a lot of time, and in fact, a lot of time on our third Thursdays looking at technical systems, medical topics, avalanche stuff, search and, actually search techniques. We do a lot of training with those things, but we don't put that same kind of time and energy into training our leadership development and our mentorship. So I am going to challenge everybody when you are done with this lecture and you go back to your teams over the next few weeks is think about your process for both bringing new people in and moving people up into those leadership positions. Is it transparent? Does everybody know the process? Is it something that we all sort of understand? And if someone's interested in rising up in your team, is there an easy way for them to know how to do that and people to talk to? Is it inclusive? Diversity and inclusion is a big part of the 21st century, and we really need to be up to speed on that in our MRA teams. And then if you have a process, is it working? Are you getting the folks you want? Are you maintaining your leadership? Are you retaining those people with lots of experience and lots of skills? I think it's really important to sort of think about this stuff as a process of training, just like we do for getting people ready to go over the edge on a vertical rope rescue. So thanks for Art for presenting this, and thank you very much, Joelle, for heading the leadership and professionalism and development committee for the MRA. And I look forward to hearing what Art has to say, and take it away. I think, Joelle, you're next. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Just a couple things. When we get started here, please mute your video. And also if you have questions, and we look forward to those, please put your questions in the chat box. And Joelle, you're up next. Joelle, you might be muted.
If it didn't unmute me, yeah. Thank you. So my name is Joelle, as I was saying on mute, and I am the chair of the MRA's Leadership and Relationship Development Committee. And as Allison so very nicely queued this up, we all know that leadership and relationship development are just skills that need practice, like any technical skill that we try to practice on a regular basis. And so as a committee, we are trying to bring to you resources and pieces of education, such as this evening, that will help you as people and as teams be better at leadership and at maintaining relationships, whether it be interpersonal relationships within your team, within your life, with other agencies that you work with. All of it, it's an all-encompassing skill that we all use and can be better at. So I am very happy that Art has agreed to speak to us tonight. Art Fortini is a 30-year member of the Sierra Madre Search and Rescue Team. He has a PhD in engineering and is the director of science and technology at a firm focusing on material science. Now, if any of you recall, Art gave a presentation on snow anchors on the third Thursday in February, and it is on the MRA website, the YouTube website, and to date, it has the most downloads. So he is very well received, and buckle your seatbelts because you're in for another ride tonight. So Art, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Joelle. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for taking your time out to attend this month's Third Thursday training. It's humbling to be asked to give one of these, and I do appreciate the vote of confidence from everybody. Any positive feedback that you have about tonight's presentation should go to Michael St. John and Joelle, since they're the ones that coerced me into giving this presentation. Any negative comments, though, or suggestions for improvement, those should come to me, since I'm the one that's responsible for the content. Okay, a little bit of history about me and why somebody thought I was qualified to talk about leadership. In 1991, I was hired as the assistant manager of research and development for a small business. In 2000, I was promoted to the director of science and technology. A few years after that, in 2007, I was elected president of Sierra Madre Search and Rescue. In 2010, I was elected region chair. In 2014, I was elected to the MRA Officers Committee. And then in 2018, I was elected MRA president. In spite of all that, I had absolutely no formal training whatsoever in leadership. So back around 2000, when I got promoted to director, I decided to take the bull by the horns, being a self-starter like most of us. So I took a bunch of short courses and read lots and lots of books, and quickly concluded that there's really no consensus on the best way to lead. The recommendations varied wildly. The books and lectures are inconsistent at best, and the data that they're using is either anecdotal or just based on their own personal experiences. I didn't see anything out there that really even came close to resembling a controlled study in terms of try this technique versus that technique. For the most part, the people who are selling books or selling classes, they're trying to sell books and classes. And to a certain extent, the quality of the data and the background on the data that they're using, I'm pretty much in the same boat. Everything we're going to talk about tonight is going to be based on personal experiences, things I've seen that work and things I've seen that don't work. The one big difference, though, between me and the people in the self-help aisle at the Barnes & Noble are that I'm not trying to sell books. And the other difference is that I'm going to be tailoring everything tonight to a search and rescue environment. Some of it may carry over to a corporate America, but I tried really hard to keep the focus on search and rescue. So if you Google on leadership, you're going to get literally billions of results. I did not read all of those web pages, but the fact that there's so much information out there on it suggests that you're not the only ones who are interested in this topic. One of the most important points I want to drive home is that the most effective technique for you to use depends on the situation. Okay, one size does not fit all. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to lead, that's going to cause you to do things a little differently. Particularly the people you're trying to lead. What is your relationship with them? And what's their attitude towards you and towards the goal that you're trying to achieve? So for example, imagine you're leading a 3-person search crew consisting of yourself, George Patton, and Barney Fife. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the leadership techniques you're going to have to use on George Patton are probably going to be different than the ones that work best on Barney. So the best technique depends on a lot of factors. It's also going to depend on what resources are available and how much time is available for the decision-making process. Now, fundamentally, when you're confronted with the need to make a decision, you have essentially three possible actions. You can take the George Patton approach and act now, or you can try to build consensus, or you can reach the conclusion that you really don't have enough information right now to make a decision, and more information is needed. I broke down leadership roles into two categories, if you will: operational leadership and organizational leadership. Now, in some search and rescue teams, the two forms of leadership I've mentioned here are one and the same. If you're an officer of some rank on the team, it carries over from both the organization to operations. In other teams, the operational leadership ladder is very different than the organizational one. So on the operational side, you may be the leader of a 3-person search crew. Okay, so you have some leadership responsibilities there. Further up the food chain, you may be an operations leader. So you're the guy at the truck deploying equipment and resources into the field on a rescue and deciding who goes where and what equipment they take in. Further up the food chain, you might be a section chief or even the incident commander on a large search incident. So that's the operational side. That's the people who do things when the pager goes off. Organizationally, these are the people that run the business of your team. So fundraising, recruiting, all that mundane stuff. All that still requires leadership. So you may be, say, chair of the truck committee on your team, or chair of the training committee, or chair of whatever committee. Further up the food chain, you may be an officer on your team. Going higher than that, maybe you're aspiring to become a region officer, or maybe you're one of the MRA national officers. One of the things I need to point out, though, is that what works well for operational leadership doesn't necessarily work well for organizational leadership, and vice versa. So again, that one size doesn't fit all kind of thing. So I put together a list of roughly 60-ish do's and don'ts, tips that you can employ or things you want to avoid to make you a better leader. Now, there is no silver bullet here. And what I would admonish you to do is to go through the list and use the approaches that work for you in your particular situation. Okay, don't try pounding a square peg into a round hole just because Art had this thing up on a slide. Okay, you have to employ common sense and cherry pick what you need to get you through whatever it is that you need to do. So let's say we start with the things to avoid. Now, most of these are going to seem obvious, especially if you're ever on the receiving end. Ineffective communication. Nothing will screw up an organization faster than poor communication. If the people that are supposed to be following you don't know the goal, they're not going to be effective. So you want to get feedback from them so that you're sure that the correct message got across to them. So for example, if you're, say, the planning section chief on a search, you know that you want team 2 to go to search segment 17 on the map, but they won't know that until you tell them. Team 2 might assume that they're going to search segment number 2. So you have to make sure that you get that point of communication across to them. New leaders are frequently slow and apprehensive about making decisions. And this is generally not a good thing. Now, we all know from experience that there's more than one way to achieve a goal. As a leader, you need to pick one. You do not want to waffle. And don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Don't wait for that perfect solution to come along, because quite frankly, it's not going to be the perfect solution if it happens too late to be useful. So as an engineer, I can optimize a racing system, say, in many, many, many different ways, all of which are completely unnecessary. I just need to build the thing and make it work. Now, sometimes speed is important in the decision-making process. So for example, on a rescue, but sometimes it's not. So for example, deciding what equipment to purchase for your team. But even when it's not, delays are not something you want to embrace. Okay, for the most part, if you're a leader, people want to see you make a decision. Waffling is generally, well, it's not a good thing, but it's generally far worse than going forward and sticking with one of many solutions, even though the solution you picked is not the perfect one. For those of you who are really into waffling, one of the little weirdnesses I discovered, March 25th is International Waffle Day. If you wait to the middle of the rainy season before deciding which Gore-Tex jackets to buy for your team, you've done your team a disservice. Okay, waiting and waffling and waiting for that perfect decision are not the best ways to approach the problem. Another thing I've seen in people that are new to leadership roles is they lose sight of the goal and they get bogged down in the minutia. So for example, let's say you're managing a large search. Your goal obviously is to find the missing hiker. Now, if the person who's helping you out printed the ICS 204s in the wrong font, don't worry about it. The show can go on with the wrong font on the papers. If the person helping you with the map printing printed the maps at the wrong scale, again, don't worry about that. Those are things that you can work with. You want to make sure you keep your eye on the big picture and focus your attention on finding the person that's out there. And sometimes you just have to roll with the punches, even if there's imperfection in the system. Okay. Being a leader requires motivating people. If a leader has poor people skills, they're not going to inspire them, and they're not going to turn the followers into active participants. And one of the things that bears mentioning is that what motivates one person won't necessarily work for the next person. You need to have lots of different arrows in your quiver and different skill sets available to you. If you've ever worked under a leader that blames others for their mistakes, you know how bad this could be and how demoralizing it is. If you're the leader, it's your mistake. Even if your underling makes the mistake, you need to take credit for it or take ownership of it. Now, sometimes your underling will make a mistake and you need to talk to them about it, but counsel them in private, not in public. So for example, if someone took too long to build a lowering system on a training or an operation, chat with them in private. Don't humiliate them in front of the group, because the message you're trying to get to them is not going to get across. If you do it in private, they'll be much more receptive to it. Some leaders tend to be very self-centered. It's about their ego, not about the team or the goals of the team. That is not a good attitude to have. Now, it's okay to be proud of your advancement, but personal advancement is not why you got elected or appointed to a leadership role. You're there to advance the mission of the team. That's your primary objective, and everything else is secondary. Now, most of the work you do as a leader is going to be behind the scenes. So most people aren't going to see it, and you're not going to get lots of praises and accolades over it. If you're the sort of guy who feels like you're the one who always has to go in front of the TV camera because you're the most articulate or the best looking or the most macho or whatever, I'm willing to bet that most of your teammates will probably not agree with that. So if you find yourself in that position, ask your teammates, if they agree that you're the one that should always be in front of the TV camera. If they say, no, I think, Bob should try it, or George, or Sandy, or whoever, give that other person a chance and give them some training, tell them, what to do, what not to do. Don't just feed them to the wolves, but give other people the opportunity to grow into that role. Leaders who are insecure tend to not accept feedback or take it very well. Being afraid of criticism is not good. Being closed-minded is not good. Considering feedback to be an attack on your person is not good. Now, the reality is that none of us are perfect. We can all use feedback, even when things go as smoothly as could possibly be expected. Now, sometimes the feedback you get is going to be gentle, so having a thick skin could definitely come in handy. Now, a culture of frank and unfettered feedback within an organization is a really good thing to instill into your team's DNA. So that when you're having those critiques where things didn't go smoothly and you just want to, talk to the team about the dirty laundry that exists, you won't feel like you're walking on eggshells and have to soft pedal things when that negative feedback is needed. A culture of open, honest communication is a wonderful thing to have in an organization. Micromanaging. Definitely want to avoid this. Not only does it demoralize the person that you're micromanaging, it tells them that you don't trust them. And it tells everybody else who's aware of what's going on that you don't trust them. So it doubly demoralizes that person. As my wife has told me more than once, never in the history of mankind has micromanaging ever solved a problem. And it's true. What you need to do is give your people free rein to go ahead and solve the problem in their own way. If they need a little bit of help, that's fine, provide it to them, but don't be hovering over their shoulder. Okay, so those are some of the things to avoid. So let's now talk about some of the traits of good leaders. Now, most of these are going to seem obvious when I say them, but if you're on the receiving end of them, you may not notice them. In fact, you may even take them for granted. So I broke these down to a couple of different categories. We'll start with decisiveness. Okay, if you're the leader, you've been put into a decision-making role. So as the leader, it's up to you to make decisions and take action. Now, in search and rescue, the information that we're working with is frequently incomplete, inconsistent, or just flat out wrong. But you still need to make a decision based on that information that's imperfect. So you need to ask yourself, does the risk of doing nothing outweigh the risk of moving forward? And 99% of the time, moving forward is going to be the best option. Now, the time frame for decision making can vary a lot. If you're deploying field crews on a rescue, your decisions are typically made on the order of seconds to minutes. Whereas deciding what color the new team jackets should be, it's probably several months of cogitating and deliberating. But regardless of the time frame, as a leader, you need to take action, make a decision. Don't wait for the perfect solution. It's okay to put search crews in the field, even if you don't know exactly where the missing person is. That's what we do on searches. Another example is that it may be better to invest in a new vehicle now before your old rescue truck becomes inoperable, rather than waiting for the perfect vehicle to come along or the perfect deal on a new rescue vehicle to come along. I once heard a search coordinator over the phone talking to somebody. I'm assuming it was somebody from the fire department. And he said something to the effect of, I'm not going to deploy my search and rescue team until I know exactly where the person is. I don't know what the context was. I just walked in on that as he was saying it. But if he was talking about a search, that's obviously not the correct approach to take for a missing person. But don't wait for perfection to start moving forward. Accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes. You're not perfect, I'm not perfect, and I've yet to meet somebody who's perfect. So you're going to make some mistakes, you're going to choose some imperfect solutions and paths forward, get used to it. Now, the key here is for you to own your mistakes. Don't brush them off, don't blame others. You want to learn from them. Focus on the lesson, not on the mistake. If you think about it, every mistake is an opportunity for you to become a better leader, and you'd be a fool not to take advantage of it. Okay, as the leader, you're in charge. So you want to own things. If you're responsible for something, take charge and make it happen. Okay, that's why you got put in that position. Don't be a minimalist that just does the bare minimum to say that you've started addressing the problem. Okay, that just makes more work for everybody else. If you need assistance, by all means, seek assistance, but take charge of the situation. So for example, if you're responsible for maintaining the rescue truck, don't wait for the engine to seize up before changing the oil. Be proactive. In general, don't wait to be told to do something or be told to just, in general, do your job. It is your job, so you should just jump on that and do it. Now, good leaders aren't afraid to ask for help. It shows that they respect others for their skills, and it shows that you're human. You get a lot of respect by asking other people for help, even though you're the guy in charge. The flip side, if you're not successful in whatever it is that you're trying to do, take responsibility for it. Don't blame your peers, don't blame your subordinates. Your subordinates and your peers can respect you a whole lot more if you take responsibility for it, especially if it was their fault. Okay, dealing with change. This is another series of points that good leaders benefit from. You want to remain flexible and adapt to changing circumstances. The status quo is going to change. Okay, that's pretty much guaranteed. Now, sometimes the change is going to be something that you want to change, and sometimes the change is going to be brought about by external influences, and it's going to force you to change. But either way, change is going to happen. So the first step is to get comfortable with chaos. You know, the old saying that no plan survives first contact with reality is so true. And I'm sure you've heard this in any of your search management classes or other leadership classes you've taken. The benefit of planning isn't in the plan that comes out at the end of the pipeline. It's in the planning effort that goes into getting there. It's the path, not the destination. So you want to get comfortable with chaos, and you want to be flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances. So for example, you're running a large multi-agency search and an unexpected clue crops up. That's a good thing. So you want to be able to change and be nimble and redirect your search effort to follow up on that clue and take advantage of it. Another situation where change may be forced upon you is that elected officials, a new sheriff may win the election. That may be a good thing, it may be a bad thing, but it generally means that there's going to be some change flowing down the pipeline to you. Another change that you might experience is that a key member of your team may move to Florida because of work. Regardless of whether it's a good change or bad change, changes are going to be happening. So you need to be flexible and adaptable to it. Stepping outside your comfort zone. You want to be comfortable doing that. It's a little bit of an oxymoron being comfortable outside your comfort zone, but regardless, generally speaking, if you're able to work outside your comfort zone or expand your comfort zone to encompass a much larger piece of the universe, you'll get much, much better results. Now, one of the nice things about stepping outside your comfort zone, even though it's initially unsettling and makes you feel uncomfortable, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So, if you're your team leader, president, captain, whatever, don't be afraid to go down to the station to meet the new station captain. Don't be afraid to give a PR talk to the local Rotary Club. As the leader, if you're afraid to do these things, your subordinates are also going to shy away from them, which means nobody's going to do it. So as the leader, you need to step forward and set the example, even if it's outside your comfort zone. If you choose to change something, have a good reason for it. Don't do it just because you can. So for example, don't change from a khaki uniform shirt to an orange uniform shirt just because you like the color orange or they're on sale or whatever. On the other hand, if you want to change from, say, 1/2-inch rescue ropes to 7/16 ropes, that's justifiable if most of your rescues are miles and miles into the backcountry. That's something you could say, I have a rational, logical reason for wanting to implement this change. As a leader, you need to keep one eye on the long-term goals. Okay, first thing you got to do is identify what they are and then proactively move towards them. You're not going to achieve your long-term goals by accident. It takes a concerted effort. Now, you want to keep your eye on the goal, keep your eye on the ball, but don't let the day-to-day fires distract you and take you off task. You want to prioritize, generally speaking, the long-term goals of the short-term goals, but you need to be flexible. Okay, so for example, if you're trying to save up enough money to buy a new rescue truck, don't let that stop you from sending people to an Avi 1 class if you do a lot of winter ops in big mountains. Okay, you want to achieve balance, but you want to keep one eye on the goal. If the system that you're working with right now works and you want to make some changes, it's better to make small incremental changes than to try and do something radical. Okay, the current system you're working with no doubt has evolved over the years or decades to what it is now. And it's apparently working because you're still using it. So what you want to do is continue the evolution of the system by keeping what's working and tweaking the things that need tweaking. But you want to make those changes small incremental steps. It's going to be much, much easier to gain support for that. Change for the sake of change or for the sake of putting your name on it is not a good reason for change. So for example, you don't want to suddenly outsource all of your training if doing trainings with your internal subject matter experts has been working for the last couple of decades. Okay. Now here's the classic skill/motivation chart. People in the upper left quadrant have skills but lack motivation. People in the bottom right, they have the motivation but they lack the skills. People in the upper right quadrant, they got the skills and the motivation. If you have people in that category that are both skilled and motivated but they're not succeeding, you're probably looking at a management failure. It probably means they're not allocated the resources to take advantage of the skills and the motivation that they have. If you're working with somebody, an individual on your team who's skilled but not motivated, you want to sit down and chat with them and find out what's demotivating them and see if you can fix that. If you have somebody in the bottom right, they're highly motivated but lack the skills, if that person is a diamond in the rough. You want to work with her and give her something else to do that suits their strengths, something that plays to their strengths so that they become skilled and motivated. If you have somebody that's in the bottom left corner, poorly skilled and poorly motivated, chances are that person is dead wood. And we'll talk more about how to deal with that in a little bit. Okay, some people just don't belong on the team. You want to save them if you can, absolutely, because finding skilled, motivated volunteers is difficult. But you also need to recognize when you can't save them. And there's really no good reason to keep a bad teammate or somebody who doesn't want to be there on the team. And try to fix the problem, but if the person doesn't change, doesn't want to change, you're going to have to make a tough call as one of your team leaders. So for example, if you have a person that's a member on paper only and no one has seen them in a year, he sends a very clear message to the rest of the team that participation on operations and trainings and meetings and whatever else is optional. Okay, That's not good. That's going to erode the participation rate of everybody else on the team. The sooner you dismiss them from the team, the easier it will be to get that, to perform that task. Now, if you wait years and years and years, it just becomes more difficult. It's very difficult to dismiss somebody from the team after they've made friends with everyone. Because now it's not just a business decision to cut this person loose who's not contributing to the team. Now you're telling a friend that, quite frankly, you don't want to be their friend anymore in the context of the search and rescue team. But fundamentally, just because someone's a nice person doesn't mean that they're cut out to do mountain rescue. And I can tell you from experience, this is one of the hardest things that you're going to do as a leader. Now, let's not let the pendulum swing too far. You want to be careful and not get rid of your senior members or your brain trust just because they've gotten too old to go racing up the hill with the 20-somethings on your team. Okay? Just because somebody is no longer field capable doesn't mean that they're not capable of contributing to the mission of the team, especially if they have 20 years of experience under their belt and can make a great asset in the command post. You want to retain your best people because replacing them is very difficult. Replacing their physical capabilities takes a lot of time and effort, and replacing their knowledge and experience takes even longer. And if you're not proactively trying to keep and grow your people, you're tacitly pushing them away. Find out what the people on your team need, what they want. Because experience and judgment are extremely valuable and virtually irreplaceable. Now, people out in the business world have done surveys like this many, many, many times over the decades, and they all pretty much come up with the same conclusion. You want to give your subordinates what they want to keep them motivated and engaged. And job satisfaction and feeling appreciated for their input and work is at the top of their list. Now, most of the people who have done these studies, you survey a bunch of managers, and they'll tell you that the number one thing that people want are good wages and job security. If you ask the employees, they want appreciation for the work that they've done. They want to feel in on things. They want to feel like it's a team effort doing what they're doing. So to help on personal problems, they want to be part of the team. And you'll notice, at least in this particular survey that I found, what the managers ranked at the very bottom of the scale were what the employees ranked at the very top of the scale. Okay, as a leader, what you want to do is say thank you to everyone after an op, or even after a training. Thank everybody for coming out and participating. You don't want to compartmentalize information. You certainly don't want to weaponize information. You want to keep the lines of communication open and in the clear so that everybody knows what's going on. You also want to have social events that involve your teammates because you want to build those bridges to them both before the pager goes off and not necessarily rely on just the adrenaline rush to build those bonds. Okay, succession planning for the future. And this, Allison kind of touched on this, and I'm glad she did. She queued this up very nicely. You want to train your successor, or successors, actually. They are the future of your team, so you want to train them well. And you want to give them opportunities to demonstrate their capabilities, not just to you, but to the entire rest of your team. These are going to be confidence boosters for them, and that's important for both them and for the rest of the team to see them in action. So put them in decision-making roles on trainings. Make them chair of a committee. Let them earn their wings and show the team what they're made of. Put them in a low-stress situation at first, and then as they're able to take on more and more responsibility, you can give them more responsibility. Growing your subordinates into leaders, it takes a concerted effort. It takes a lot of time, and I guarantee you it will take a lot more time than you're anticipating. So you want to plan for it, okay? Not just conceptually. You want to actually have a well thought out plan on how to bring people up in your team. As Allison mentioned, do you have a list of prerequisites for somebody to become an operations leader or a search manager? Do you have a list of prerequisites for someone to be electable to your board of directors? Okay, you want to have a well-defined path. You want to have something that's out there that all of the members of your team can look at, and if they aspire to leadership roles, that they can see, okay, this is the direction I need to go. These are the skills I need to develop. Training your subordinates to become leaders is one of the best investments you can make in your team's future. Like I said, it's going to take time, but it's well worth it. So you want to develop a training plan for operational leaders. What does it take to become a crew chief? Do you have a plan in place or a training curriculum for training people to be crew chiefs or operations leaders? In a lot of states and a lot of counties, there are classes in search management available through the state or the county. So maybe tap into those. You also want to develop a plan for organizational leadership. And one of the things we've done on our team is that anybody who's chair of a committee or in an elected office, they're given a list of things to do that the previous chair put together, just to grease the skids and make it easier for the new person to come in and take over that role. They already have their list of responsibilities enumerated for them. And as they sit in that office or as chair of that committee or whatever, they get to add to that list and polish it up and make it a little bit better so that when the next person takes over, it's even easier for them to move into that role. Making yourself irreplaceable. If you look at what the internet says, this is something that's, I'd say controversial, but there's not a lot of agreement on this. I recommend making yourself, or avoid making yourself irreplaceable, okay? If you make yourself irreplaceable, you've done your team a major disservice. In my opinion, it means your ego is far too large. If you're irreplaceable, how's the team going to function if you're away and you can't be reached, either because you're on vacation, you're backpacking, or you're on a business trip and in the middle of a meeting? Okay, or if you're on vacation, you're going to be able to enjoy that vacation if your cell phone just told you your team got called out for a large search. The better approach here is to grow your subordinates and your peers. Now, I mentioned many websites recommend making yourself irreplaceable because that, gives you job security. But what it also means is that if you're the only person that can do that job, it means that you're the only person that's ever going to do that job, so you're not promotable either. So, for example, if you're the only person that can program the radios, that's not good for your team. If you get hit by a bus, that's going to leave your team in a serious lurch. So you want to train your subordinates. You don't want to be irreplaceable. You want to make sure that there's somebody on your team that could do every little thing that you do. And maybe multiple people that cover that base, but you want to make sure that you're not leaving the team high and dry if you suddenly move to Antarctica. You want to be patient with building your team. Building a high performance team takes time. Organizations don't become great just because a new person took the lead and shouted out from the top of his lungs, "We're going to become great." You can't demand greatness. You have to grow it. You have to work towards that goal. So you want to identify specific long-term goals and work towards them. Now, organizations typically have a lot of inertia, so change is not going to happen quickly. You want to be patient, but you don't want to become lax or lose sight of the goal either. So, for example, if you want to increase the participation rate of your team members on operations, that's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. You want to encourage everybody on a day-to-day basis. So at the meetings, just remind everybody, we need to get people participating more. You want to cut the dead wood because they send negative message. You want to recruit energetic people because they're the ones who are just full of energy and they want to show up on every single operation. You also want to identify role models for those new people so that the new people aren't contaminated, if you will, by the ones who have a very lax attitude and poor participation. Okay, to be a leader, you need three things. You need responsibility, authority, and accountability. Okay, authority. You're responsible for the success of the team or the mission or whatever it is that you've been put in charge of. Take ownership of it. You are responsible for that, not somebody else. It's you, so you want to take the reins on that. Authority. You need to have the authority to make decisions. And then finally, accountability. There should be consequences if you fail to live up to the expectations. Now, whether we're talking about technical proficiency, professionalism, morality, ethics, whatever. But you want there to be accountability because without that, leaders become irresponsible. So you don't want to be told what to do. You're in charge, so it's up to you to decide. Okay, that's your responsibility. So you may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with succession planning? Well, these are things you need to flow down to the people below you that you're grooming for leadership roles. You want to give them responsibility, authority, and you want to hold them accountable. So particularly authority. You want to give your subordinates responsibility. If you give them responsibility without authority, that's a recipe for failure. If all decisions need to be vetted by you, you fail to give them authority. Okay, it tells them and their subordinates and everybody else that's out there that you don't trust them. And this is a trait that's very, very commonly seen with micromanagers. So if you're the top dog, you need to flow those three traits down to your subordinates: responsibility, authority, and accountability. So for example, if you task the training chair with organizing trainings for the next year, give them the authority to implement that plan. If you're questioned about it, you want to support their decisions. If someone has questions about it, direct them to the chair of the training committee, because it's their responsibility to make those decisions, not yours as the team leader or wherever you are in the organizational chart. Okay, if they want to discuss, if somebody has questions about the training syllabus and they have questions about it, direct them to the training chair and let them have that discussion with the decision maker. Okay, as a leader, you want to lead from the front. So a couple of tips here. You want to be good at what you do, and you want to work harder than those around you. You want to lead from the front and be an inspiration to everybody around you. You want to set the bar high. Okay, if you settle for mediocrity, so will everybody else, and that's going to bring the entire team down. You want to let your actions convince others that you want excellence. You want to be a role model. You want to be the guy out in front that everybody wants to emulate. You want to have a presence. Let people see you. Don't manage from behind a closed door. Lead from the front. Strive for better attendance, for example, than the people that you're leading. If your goal is to increase participation on operations, well, if you're going to be banging that drum, you need to have good participation stats. If you're the guy that's always in the command post, make it a point to spend time in the field. Get your boots dirty once in a while. Make sure your participation stats are better than most. Be that role model. Telling people that they should do X, Y, and Z is one thing, but demonstrating it by your actions sends a much, much more powerful message to the group. Let your people know when the ship is sinking or when there's a big storm on the horizon for your organization. If everyone knows the situation, they'll be far more motivated to help fix the problem. And the more people you have working together on the problem, the more likely you are to find a viable solution to it. So for example, a newcomer to your agency, the agency that oversees your team, may want to disband the team or thoroughly reorganize or do something that you as a team member think is just not a good idea. If you wait till it's too late to take action, you've done your team a disservice. The faster you can get the rest of your team on board to try and take action to reach some sort of mutually agreeable solution, the better off it is for everybody, not just your team. You want to set the bar high as a leader. Okay, it's okay to push your teammates and your trainees hard. Okay, but remember that the goal is to make them better or smarter. Okay, as the saying goes, don't kick your dog without a reason. Don't give your teammates or your subordinates scut work to do just so you could assert your authority. Okay, most people just consider that to be hazing. That's not productive. Having your trainees do push-ups while you lecture them about your team's awesome history is generally not productive or inspiring. And I saw a video where a SAR team leader was doing precisely that to their new recruits. I seriously doubt it inspired the recruits. You want to continuously set high standards. Make what once used to be considered unusual the new norm. So for example, if it routinely takes people 8 minutes to build the lowering system and then convert it to a raising system, well, maybe you could inspire people to knock that down to 5 minutes or 4 minutes. How quickly can you build a lowering system and convert it to a raise? How quickly can you tie a patient into a litter? How quickly can you hike to location X with a full call-out pack on? One option here would be to set up a friendly competition to see who can do, whatever the fastest, make a little top 10 list. An important thing here, though, is that it needs to be a friendly competition. And you need to be careful because most people in search and rescue are type A competitive folks, and this could easily backfire on you. So you don't want this to become an excuse for divisiveness or becoming elitist. Okay, but if it can be done as a friendly competition, then that's one way to raise the bar for everybody that participates in that competition. It improves their skill set. Okay, leaders need to do the right thing. Step one, give credit where credit is due. And that's regardless of whether it's passing it up the food chain or down the food chain. Positive feedback is a powerful motivator for everybody on your team, whether they're above you or below you. So make use of it. Positive feedback from a respected leader can have an amazing effect on people. So if you're on a search and one of your members tracked a barefoot subject for 3 miles and found them alive, be sure to praise them and do it publicly. Let everybody know that you appreciate what they did. because they did something that was very, very difficult. And if you give them that positive feedback, they're more likely to be willing to go do that again. Now, as a leader, most of the time, you know what you should do. If your spidey senses are tingling, listen to them. For example, should you hand off the planning role on a large search to someone else and go in the field, or should you stay in the command post? Leadership isn't just about making decisions for other people to carry out. It's also about being the person in the field and leading from the front. So let's say you're on day 3 of a large search, and there's an ugly assignment that needs to be done. It's an overnight assignment in winter conditions. You need wetsuits because you're running a canyon. You need a mile of rope, blah, 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 blah. You're carrying a pack that weighs more than you do. Do you lead that crew, or do you stay in the CP with a cup of coffee in your hand and stay warm? It's pretty much guaranteed that you can gain far more respect by lacing up your boots and loading up your pack and going to the field with your teammates than you will from staying in the command post, assuming that you are technically and physically capable of handling that type of an assignment. As a rule of thumb, though, you never want to ask someone to do something that you yourself would be unwilling to do if you had their skills and capabilities. Do unto others. Treat your subordinates with respect. You want to look out for their well-being. There's a phrase out there in leadership books and websites that says the leader eats last. What it means is that you want to ensure that your subordinates enjoy creature comforts, say after a long search assignment or a hard assignment, whatever it is, before you do. Okay, as the leader, you want to take care of them before you see to your own physical needs. Okay, so make sure they're fed and rested before giving them another assignment on a large search. If it's a mutual aid search, let them sleep on the drive home while you do the driving, if it was an out-of-county mission. Okay? Take care of their physical needs. Go the extra mile to make your boss look good, okay? Because it's going to make you look even better. If she looks bad, you're going to look even worse. If she fails, that means you fail too. Even if your boss is a self-serving idiot, you can probably still learn a few things from him. Okay? Identify the things that make him look like an idiot and avoid them. Okay? That's the easy part. But chances are they're also doing a few things right. So figure out what those things are and learn from them. So, going the extra mile to make your boss look good. Let others know that you made that awesome find on that big search because you were given the plum assignment. The person in the planning section generally doesn't get the praises when the find is made. It's the field crew that gets the praises. So if you're the person that made the find, be sure to pass that praise up the chain of command. If your boss is a self-serving twit, identify the things that they do well. So for example, if they're good at creating search assignments, try to understand their decision-making logic that gives them that skill set. On the other hand, if they're always grandstanding and you see that turns other people off, avoid grandstanding. As a leader, as a member of your team, your value during a mission has nothing to do with where you are or how close you are to the action. No mission succeeds without lots and lots of work happening behind the scenes. So as the leader, you want to be able to thank the people behind the scenes for doing what they did to make it work. If you're the one who made it work, chances are no one's going to be thanking you. So knowledge that you did a job and you did it well and that led to a successful outcome, that might be all the thanks you're going to get. But it's always a team effort. Okay, someone maintains your vehicles. Someone else restocked the medical pack. Things go off the rails on a big search without logistical support. Lots and lots of behind the scenes stuff has to take place for the magic to happen. So if you're in a leadership role, you want to thank the people responsible for making that happen. Okay, nobody on this Zoom call knows it all. As a leader, one of the things you want to do is surround yourself with people who are better, smarter, faster, stronger than you are. It's going to make your team better, faster, stronger, and it's going to make you better, faster, and stronger because it gives you an opportunity to learn from people who know more than you do. If you're intimidated by others who are better than you, you're not going to make a good leader. Being a leader doesn't mean being the best. It means getting the best out of people. So make it a point to learn from the people who are better than you. Let them bring you up. Let them bring everybody on your team up. Acknowledge that they are the experts. One of the things that you're probably not going to see in most leadership books is to have a confidant to bring you back to earth. One of the things that you learn once you become a leader is that the more authority you have, the more you need someone to tell you the truth. Because the more important you are, the more likely it is that people are going to tell you what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear. So you want to meet with this confidant on a fairly regular basis and thank them when they give you bad news. Okay, you don't have to agree with what they say, but you want to listen to what they say because they're essentially a truth broker for you. So for example, let's say you have this great idea. You want to invest your team's nest egg, every last penny that you have, to ensure the financial security of your team going into the future. And you think that nailclippers.com, that's the hot ticket. That's going to be the real moneymaker going forward. You need somebody to whisper in your ear that that's probably not a good idea. And then listen to them and do some more research and convince yourself whether or not that's a good business decision. Listen to your people. Most of the good ideas that you're going to come up with or that will be advancing your team are going to come from your subordinates, not from you. Because quite frankly, there are a lot more of them than there are of you. And they're frequently a lot closer to the issue that's bothering them where there's a need for improvement. Now, what you can do as a leader is proactively solicit their input. It tells them that you care what they think, and it'll promote their buy-in of whatever the final solution is that you collectively come together with. So if you're the training officer and people are grumbling about trainings, ask for ideas on how to improve it. They may say they want you to cover new material instead of just always doing a retread of the same old stuff with the same old slide deck. Make the training scenarios more realistic. Train in new terrain, someplace where people don't already know where all the anchors are, where the patient's going to be. Train in bad weather or train at night. Do something to mix it up and require people to work and do search and rescue activities outside of their comfort zone. If you're new to a leadership role, you want to learn the ropes before starting to act like a Mr. Know-it-all. Talk to your peers and subordinates and take the time to learn how the system really works, not just on paper, but in reality. You're the new guys, so you probably know less than the others that have been doing this for years and years. If you think you know everything, you're ready to just jump right in and take charge, you're probably not ready for that leadership role. If you're a good leader, you'd know that you need to talk to the people who've been doing it for years and years before you start acting like you know everything. So for example, just because you took a week-long tracking course doesn't mean that you know more than that 20-year member sitting off quietly to the side. You can probably learn an awful lot just by sitting down and talking to her for half an hour. If someone comes to you complaining about a problem, ask them for a solution. If they have one, listen to what they have to say. If they don't have a solution and they're just complaining, well, tell them to think about it a little bit more and then come back when they do have a viable solution. If you point out a problem to your supervisor, be sure to come to them with a viable, well thought out solution. Don't just be the guy that points out the problem, be the guy that points out the solution. So for example, if someone's complaining that attendance is down at trainings, someone should do something about it. Well, ask that person what should be done and who should do it. Conversely, if you're the one offering the solution, be prepared to be part of that solution. If it was something that's important enough to you to bring to the attention of your team's leadership, it's important to you, so you can expect to be part of the solution. Instilling trust. You want to communicate to your teammates that you trust them. Okay, don't just say it verbally. You want to say it through your actions. So if you're overseeing a technical rescue, let your people do their job. Accept their word that the system is properly constructed and inspected by your safety officer. Don't re-inspect it yourself. That's your safety guy's job. Don't build a system for your subordinates because you think you can do it faster. Don't hover over them while they're trying to do their job. Your job as the leader, especially on the rescue, is to step back and keep your eye on the big picture, not to micromanage people. Now, leadership is all about relationships. They need to trust you, you need to trust them, and you want to use actions to build that trust and inspire confidence. So you want to go the extra mile at every opportunity so that they know that you have their back. So for example, you want to put a cup of hot cocoa in everybody's hands when they come back to the CP after a winter search assignment. Don't make them go get it themselves. That little gesture is worth its weight in gold because it tells them that you care about them. You don't want to allow or encourage your subordinates to circumvent the chain of command. Failure to do so erodes the authority of that person's being circumvented, and it tells everybody below and parallel with them that you don't trust that person. So if you allow this person to come to you and circumvent this person, you're telling everybody on the team that you don't trust this person. That's not a good thing. So if someone comes to you complaining about the reliability of your rescue truck, redirect them to the chair of the truck committee. If someone has a better idea for training, redirect them to the training officer. It's their job to make those decisions about trucks and trainings, not yours. And it also tells your people on the truck committee and the training committee that you trust them. And developing that trust is worth its weight in gold. It's okay if you disagree with your boss if your subordinates disagree with you. People are going to have different opinions about how things should be done. Now, at the end of the day, the leader has to balance the pros and cons of the various options. Not everyone is going to be happy with the decision, but somebody famous once said, a surefire recipe for failure is trying to please everybody. Now, as a leader, you need to realize that a team is more than a group of people working towards a common goal. It's people working towards that common goal despite differences of opinion. If you can get that team to gel, even though they disagree with how to get there, that's a great thing. You want to provide basic necessities for your people. Make them feel included and part of the team. Recognize them for both good and poor performance, and develop trust. Make sure they know that the leader, that would be you, has their back and that you're going to be honest with them. So recognition for good performance that you can do publicly, praises and accolades are great. Discussions regarding poor performance, those should be done in private. And remember, if someone performed poorly, you want to focus on the performance, not the person. So for example, you'd want to say, the system was assembled incorrectly, not you assembled the system incorrectly. Okay, try to make it not about the person, but what happened. Finally, as someone who's going to be trying to take advantage of some of these tips and tricks of the trade, it's time for you to put it to practice. Pretty much everything I said here is going to require practice in order to improve and to develop those skills. Simply reading a book or listening to a talk or listening to Art prattle on for an hour doesn't cut it. Not all of these tips, like I said at the beginning, will be useful to you. Some will be applicable, some won't. Some you already have the skills and you don't need to polish them. Some you do. What you want to do is pick the ones that are useful to you and try them out and ignore the ones that aren't applicable to you. One size does not fit all, and we're all constantly learning. And with that, I will wrap things up and open the floor for questions.
Art, that was an outstanding presentation, probably one of the best overall lecture leadership elements I've heard. So that was very well done. In the questions, there was a dynamic discussion on if pagers are obsolete or not, but no questions that I can see here, just some appreciation. And but one of the questions, just got one, is do you find it harder to lead a volunteer organization than in your professional career?
Actually, I find it easier to lead the volunteers because I find them to be more motivated. In a professional environment, at the end of the day, people do need to bring home a paycheck, right? So if you're pushing them away in the professional setting, there's a barrier for them to move on. Looking for a job is a full-time job. So if you're a poor leader in a business environment, some people are going to stick around even though they despise you. Whereas on a search and rescue team, people are there because they want to be there. Okay, you really don't have a lot of carrots or what's the opposite of a carrot?
Stick.
Yeah, there are not a lot of sticks that you can wave at them in a search and rescue team. We go on search and rescue missions because we want to help people.
Excellent. Another question, and I'm going to tweak it just slightly. What are the best recruiting initiatives you have found for valuable team members?
That's like picking up your paycheck.
And I'm going to add retention.
Okay. In terms of recruiting, we do a lot of word of mouth. So people on the team talk to their people, and let's face it, everybody that's on a search and rescue team is somebody who likes being in the outdoors. And they know other people who like being in the outdoors. So we just allow that network to continue growing. In terms of retention, it's pretty much all of the things I mentioned in terms of being a good leader. Make them feel valued. Say thank you to them. Give them opportunities for growth within the team. Make them feel like they are a valuable contributor to the overall mission of the team.
Okay. Excellent. Well, that is all the questions I can see. Art, thanks again. We had well over 80 people on this third Thursday, and appreciate you.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Joel, for coursing me into giving this little talk tonight. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. I appreciate it.
All right.
Great
Have a good
job,
night,
Art.
everybody.
Thank
Good,
you.
everyone.